He said, they're hiring if you're interested in doing it. And I kind of laughed straight away. I thought, there's no way I could work in a prison. It's one of those things, once you put on that uniform, your whole persona and your attitude changes.
Right.
And it becomes, My wife would often say, and I do talk about this and reference it in the book as well, once I put that uniform on, it was very much a case of don't fuck with me.
I'm Andrew Rule. This is Life and Crimes. Last week, we spoke to serving prison officer, a man who calls himself Bruce McLeod, not his real name. He uses that name to write a book about his experiences. He told us about the death of a friend of his who's also a prison officer, a death that arose indirectly because of his work in prisons. And this week, we're going to hear the second half of the long and gruelling story that he told us. Hello to you again, Bruce.
Thank you, Andrew.
Now, you're a man in you're in middle age.
I turned 60 next year.
Right. You took this on more than 20 years ago. So you'd been around for a fair while before you took up being a prison officer.
Yeah.
What trajectory took you to working in prisons rather than, some other public service job or whatever?
I basically spent 10 years in the computers industry, sales and purchasing and that for a computer company down in Geelong.
Did you?
I was also doing martial arts at the time.
Okay.
And I actually had...
Which one? Which martial art?
Somakai, which was a freestyle martial arts.
Right.
It incorporated lots of
Okay.
different styles. So
Right.
at the time, my instructor basically came and spoke to me one day, and he worked at the prison.
Yeah.
And he said, they're hiring if you're interested in doing it. And I kind of laughed straight away. I thought, there's no way I could work in a prison.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realised that he's not someone to say something like that
Unless
lightly.
if he thought you couldn't do it. What made you take it on? I mean, they're often going to need officers because it's a tough job and there's an attrition rate.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say in many decades of doing what I do, I've met a lot of prison officers and I've very rarely met happy ones or ones who don't find it a stress or a strain at some level.
Yeah.
Often they're not happy about their employers, I have to say. There's been a lot of unhappiness, not in your case, but in others. Traditionally.
That can happen, but it's one of those things. Once you put on that uniform, your whole persona and your attitude changes.
Right.
And it becomes,
Yeah.
My wife would often say, and I do talk about this and reference it in the book as well, once I put that uniform on, it was very much a case of don't fuck with me.
Right, okay. And you need to have that.
Coming home,
Yeah.
it was always, that's the first thing that's got to come off.
Yeah.
That uniform.
And the attitude.
And
Shed the attitude.
And basically, then sort of coming back to that home life.
Right.
And it's very difficult and sometimes to be able to separate those two things because of the weight that you carry.
I remember prison officers years ago that worked at Pentridge, they telling me that they did long shifts, 12-hour shifts and 7-day shifts and Sunday, all this stuff, because the shifts were available and they needed the money to pay their mortgage. They did it because it was there.
Yeah, that's right.
And they realised it trapped them, they said, because they realised that, you knock off, you go home, you eat something, you go to bed, you get up, you go back to jail. They said they end up serving life sentences because basically almost every waking hour is inside the place where they've traded their freedom for money.
Yeah.
And not a lot of money, but money.
Yeah.
And they realised they were doing the life sentences, some of them.
Yeah. It's funny, I've been Melbourne Assessment Prison where it's an assessment location. Anyone that's held in remand or sentence, that's the first place that they will go to. So I've seen them from there. I've seen them from Bowen Prison when they're actually being released.
Yes.
So I've seen the whole system through the courts and everything.
You've done a lot.
And yeah. And I've worked all different types of units, mainstream, protection, management.
Really? The whole lot?
AAU, the acute assessment at MAP as well.
Yeah.
Where you're dealing with prisoners, schizophrenic backgrounds and a lot of mental health issues.
Do you feel that you're good at it because you have a mixture of humane attitude and sort of a gentle approach, but also you'd done martial arts, so you were confident that you could handle situations, or?
Yeah, probably 70% of, or probably even maybe a little bit higher, but 70% of what we really do is about communication.
Yeah.
Being able to talk to people and that. And you, again, you're talking to people from all different backgrounds, all different socioeconomic lifestyles and that. But it's also important to understand and I guess you don't want to read everything that they've done in the past, because, starting to read every single crime and that will play with your own head.
Not ideal.
But understanding that they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
They're there because they've committed crimes. The court system, the justice system is basically holding them for an account.
Yeah.
And we're just simply there to, provide some sort of duty of care. And that's not the same as caring for them, but basically managing them and just simply trying to provide a system where, they're going to be comfortable inside. From that point of view, they've got access to a number of different programs and things and all that as far as the rehabilitation side of it.
Have you seen that work?
On a few occasions. I've told prisoners in the past, I'll see you again real soon. We'll keep a bed warm for you.
Okay, so you can pick the sheep from the goats pretty quickly.
I had one who lasted 15 minutes.
No. Tell me about that.
He got released from Melbourne Assessment Prison. So he was basically released onto a drug program, drug rehabilitation, sort of a drug house and that for afterwards.
And he ran into strife.
He basically got picked up by corrections community service officers. Basically left Melbourne Assessment Prison, drove down the road, said that he wanted to stop and get some money out of an ATM, so they pulled over. He jumped out, got the money out of the ATM and bolted. Ran into the Melbourne CBD, ran around the corner and ran straight into police, who then held him. So I think it was about 15 minutes that he lasted.
That was very funny.
Yeah, it was I believe it was on a Friday. By Monday, he was back at the prison.
Must have had that look when the police saw him of "arrest me, I'm a crook," or something.
Pretty much, yeah. He was obviously massive history as far as drugs, so he was very much a drug seeker.
Okay.
As far as in the system,
yeah,
and that was obviously his downfall as far as when he got out. And
do you feel that if you had to make a generalisation about prisoners, that drugs are a common denominator with most or many of them?
Yeah. Drug and alcohol programs are generally the probably the most access programs within a prison system.
And you think both those, drugs, I suppose alcohol is a drug, that they're the biggest drivers of criminal behaviour and offences, do you think?
Yeah. Again, I talk about it in the book that the only time that you ever see them upset and coming across prisoners that are basically sitting in the cell crying and that is because they don't feel sorry for their victims. They're sorry because they got caught.
Yeah.
They're sorry because they're actually locked up and missing their own families.
Sorry for themselves.
Yeah. And at that stage,
you don't run into a lot of remorse inside.
No. Well, they'll all tell you the same story. They're innocent. Someone else set them up.
You mentioned a word which I often think of when I deal with crooks or write about crooks, and that is narcissism. That if there's a word that unifies most crooks, not everyone, crooks, it's narcissism. That they're the centre of their own universe and they don't care about anybody else, like a spoilt kid.
Yeah.
Spoilt kid.
Yeah. And there's one particular one that I did reference in the book that he saw drug trafficking as a profession.
Yeah.
At like you and I going out to work or something like that. Yeah. He saw the actual drug, trafficking as a profession, as a way of providing for his family.
Yeah.
He didn't see it as anything other than that.
Yep.
So it was very much a case of talking to him about some of this. He would then describe things like, stealing money from his own kids' birthday cards or Christmas card as a way of funding habits and things like that. So I deliberately, throughout the book, changed a lot of references and that to prisoners or places or dates or anything like that, to avoid that, because prisoners have the perception that once you start talking about something, they believe everything's about them. You're talking or making references about them.
Right.
So it's trying to basically avoid that.
It's interesting.
But there's a lot in the book as far as the prison life and separating home life, how I met Brian.
Your friend.
And the way I described it, the screw dog maggot,
Yeah.
it's exactly how it happened, and that's in the book.
Yeah.
To the point where I was assaulted at MAP. That's in the book. There's a lot of things like that I experienced.
Okay, so
that's in there as well.
If you'd been unlucky, because we can all have good luck, bad luck, or something in between, you could have been assaulted in a way that rendered you unfit to work. You could have got a payout that you had to invest somewhere.
Yeah.
That this is the sort of thing that can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When you get paid out, you can't really function the way you used to.
Yeah.
You need to use the money you've got, even though it seems like a lot. You actually need to invest it in some way that it keeps bringing in an income for decades, possibly, if you're going to stay alive. It puts a big pressure on people and a big strain. And
Absolutely.
Some of them are going to, throw the ball at the stumps and go for something that pays. Yeah. In Geelong terms, they're going to invest it with Pyramid, not the Commonwealth Bank. They're going to go for something that pays better.
Yeah.
And that's risky, and that can go wrong. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For 20 plus years, I've known a lot of officers that have been injured and never worked again.
Yes.
And it's absolutely devastating. And
Is that common?
It's not that common that there's officers that get assaulted.
Yeah.
That part, I guess, around the state can be quite common. And there's certainly, I know head office with corrections are trying to look at strategies in ways of being able to reduce those assaults. As far as staff being permanently injured, where they're not working again, or they may have to look at, other types of employment away from corrections, that can happen. It's not that common, but it is something that does happen and does occur. And some of those people that have been, affected by their assaults, it's absolutely horrific. They've got lifelong injuries and mental health to deal with.
Mental health. Now, that's the other thing about your job and police and soldiers. We notice this.
Yeah.
That the mental scars run deep with many people and are, hugely common. I mean, there's so many defence personnel suicide.
Yeah.
And the police force is maybe not as deeply affected as the defence forces, but it's certainly affected.
Yeah.
And your business is the same.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing, and why is that? Tell me what you think. You're dealing with people that want to, you've always got to be on guard, so vigilance. That gets to you in the end.
It does. I've been diagnosed with PTSD myself.
Right.
And that's through a couple of assaults that I've experienced, but working in the job as well.
Right.
We do become very hypervigilant.
Yes.
We see threats everywhere, and that's not just inside the prison. You could be walking down the street. You're constantly looking around for threats from anywhere. And if you're with your family and then suddenly the way you react and grab someone and they look at you kind of strange, but once you're a prison officer, that feels almost reactionary to you as a way of safeguarding the ones that you care about.
Yes.
You don't care about your own safety. It's others that you're basically looking to protect. And I think also...
Exposure to danger...
Yeah, I think also...
leaves a mark.
Yeah, I think also coming back to something I mentioned earlier, the fact that because you can't talk to family or other people around the job and what it is that you do, see, experience, you tend to feel isolated unless you're actually talking to other officers that understand the role that you do.
Yep.
You tend to feel isolated. You tend to feel, how can I tell someone, what I did today, about this incident and that. You try and avoid those things. You walk through the door. How was your day today? Yeah, good.
What can you really say?
Yeah, it's difficult. And then from that point of view, I think a lot of officers really feel the strain. You tend to hang around with obviously other officers
who understand.
And
I presume there's really any good news, to take home. Occasionally, but not much.
No. I have delivered good news in the past to prisoners.
Have you? What like?
Working in the control room, prisoners' partner, wife, girlfriend, whoever
has a baby. Yeah.
And once we inform the security supervisor on shift at night, they might say, "Yeah, look, give them the message, give them the good news."
Yeah.
And you tell them.
You go down and see him?
No, just through an intercom system.
Oh, right.
Call him up in the cell.
Oh, right.
And deliver
you can
the good
do
news.
Yeah, okay. And what's been the reaction to that? Can you remember doing that with certain people?
Yeah, a few times. They're absolutely thrilled. They can't believe it. And you try and give them a few details about the baby being born, weight, sex, that sort of thing.
Really?
And they're so thankful. Thank you, boss. Thank you. That's great news. Thank you very much. And they really appreciate it.
And do they remember that, a week later?
No. And they probably don't remember. Yeah, probably don't remember who actually told them that. But look, there are a few occasions where you do have some moments, those small moments where it is just nice to work there.
Have you ever met a prisoner that you genuinely liked as a person?
Yeah, I've met a few. Yeah. One he was actually, and this is going back.
Yeah, that's okay.
23 years ago.
Yep.
He actually helped out the maintenance workers quite a bit as like a plumber's mate. He would actually help them and that.
Pretty handy fella.
Yeah. Very good with the tools. Obviously, you had to watch him like a hawk around those tools, but he was someone that you could generally say he'll make a go of it when he's released. What
sort of thing was he in for?
I couldn't tell you. I really just didn't want to know.
Okay.
Yeah. There were a few.
Had he been a tradie, do you think?
He sort of had that background,
and
I think he wanted to sort of do a bit more with it.
Right.
But there's other prisoners that I did need to know what their background was because, I've dealt with murderers and killers and serial killers and gangland and, convicted terrorist suspects and that as well. So a whole gambit of
I'm going to ask you
persons.
A rude question that you shouldn't be asked, but I'll do it because the listeners will want to know.
Yeah.
Last 25 years, we've heard a lot about gangland wars and gangland figures have become well known and so on. And many of them did end up in Barwon and Port Phillip.
Yeah.
Have you had much to do with some of those characters that we
a little bit along the way. Yeah.
We all knew and loved or loathed.
Yeah. There was one who was released not that long ago.
All right, yeah.
The SCSG, and it was funny, I told this as a bit of a fun fact to family that I was the last one to see him leave Barwon and wave goodbye to him. There was news choppers flying above the prison and they basically took him out on the way to court where he was then released.
Tony.
But I was in the Sally Port at the time
and
saw him and waved goodbye.
Strikes me, we're talking about Tony Mockbell, strikes me as a fellow that most people who know him find him to be, he's a bent businessman. He's a crooked businessman. He's a guy that likes to sell drugs to make money rather than, a bloke who wants to run around murdering people for kicks. His idea was to be, as you said, you run into them, they think it's just a way to make business, make money to support their families, and that was him.
Yeah.
Him and his lot.
Look, there's been quite a few over the years. Certainly some well known characters it's hard. Some of them, and having dealt with some of them, you've got to be very, very careful on your toes all the time.
I dare say.
And that. So you get to know them, they get to know you. People would often say, how much do you actually tell them about yourself? I would often say, look, I live in Geelong, and that's it. I don't have to specify exactly where, but if they knew that I barracked for Essendon Football Club, who cares? What are they going to do with that information?
That's true.
But I would often come in and say to them after a weekend, if Essendon lost, I said, anyone mention it, I'm going to lock you up early as a way of just having a joke with them.
Yeah.
These days, 20 years ago, you could do that.
Yeah.
These days, it probably not so much. You generally find now with new staff, it's a lot harder for them to build up the rapport that you would have with prisoners.
Do you find that the different ethnic groups, different language groups, et cetera, we now have a country, at least in the big cities, where half the people walking around, their parents were born elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that they for a lot of people, English is a second language. Is that fact reflected in the jail population now?
Yeah.
The Essendon joke that was a good joke 20 years ago is not quite as good these days when you're dealing with people whose idea of sport might be soccer or kickboxing.
Yeah. Well, again, that probably also depends on which unit you actually walk into.
Of course, okay.
There are some units where you do actually have a lot of the older heads, the older prisoners.
Right.
So that joke would probably work with them.
But
in
not so much with
another unit, the
young Middle Easterns, not so much.
Yeah, you've got a lot of young offenders coming through the system these days, and that's very hard then, making any type of connection with them.
The middle-aged Anglo, like you and me, hasn't got a lot in common with a 23-year-old Middle Eastern kid or island kid or whatever.
Sudanese,
it's not
all different backgrounds.
Different backgrounds.
Yeah.
You haven't really got a common experience. But
No. I always liked it. If I was running the unit, I always liked having some of the Asian prisoners as billets, and they were like trusted workers within the actual unit to do cleaning and other jobs and that.
Diligent and polite.
Because they would cook the most amazing meals, and the whole unit would smell absolutely amazing.
Really?
They were great. Other units, you had older prisoners that may have that sort of gangland background.
Right.
They used to cook a lot of pasta and pizza nights.
Did they?
And it would smell absolutely amazing.
Is that right?
Yeah. But I've worked with officers from all different backgrounds, from a lot of those different countries as well. And I always found the one rule that I would always use as far as initiating a conversation and getting to know people, and that was food.
Food.
We always...
Jailhouse cooks.
We all basically eat. We all then would start conversations off about food and things like that. And it was also a way of, getting prisoners to open up.
Really?
In regards to, they would have to order meals and that through the kitchen. So you'd be talking to them about what meals you like and what are you ordering this week and things like that as well.
Common ground.
It was just something that, just finding that, regardless of the background, regardless of where you came from or your crime, it was something that we could all relate to.
In jail, where you haven't got a lot else to occupy yourself, food becomes quite an important item.
Yeah.
Your next meal matters.
Oh, look,
matters quite a lot. Yeah.
I've seen fights break out over desserts.
Really?
In regards to
what sort of dessert were they fighting over?
I think it was a little bit of cake, custard, and jelly, a bit of cream on top, But the kitchen, the prisoners at the time basically put that aside. Someone went to a fridge to get theirs out and accused another prisoner of taking that. And it was just that little spark that created an absolute assault. And that's where you then have 3 or 4 prisoners jump in and
history repeats itself. One of the
massive.
The famous prison wars at Pentridge in the bad old days, in the Chopper Reed era, was what they called the Great Sausage War, where it was alleged that certain people had stolen the Christmas sausages and the other prisoners weren't happy, and they had a war inside that went on for months, and a lot of people were badly injured.
You still have, to this day, kitchen workers that will try and smuggle meat, cheese, anything they can out of the kitchen, down their pants or anywhere that they can hide it, and try and sneak it back to units.
Really?
And it's not always for them; it's for others. That they will basically try and do things like that.
Really?
As far as food and things like that, something that they may not have readily accessible to. They will then try and smuggle things around like that. Yeah, it happens quite often. And there'll be a little email that'll come out the next day that so-and-so got caught, and obviously they've been sacked from that position.
Oh, right.
And just to let the rest of the prison know.
To be a cook or to work in the kitchen is quite a good privilege, is it not?
Yeah.
Sought after?
Yeah, it is. It is a good position because obviously you've got a lot then to occupy yourself. The worst thing inside is that you've got time, and time's against you in that you're doing your sentence, but every day you need something to do, occupy yourself.
Yeah. Interesting insight into the human condition, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you need, that in jail, the best thing is to do something because it makes the time pass.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a lesson for all of us.
Yeah, so it is, and again, referencing back to the book as well, the grief that I had afterwards. Grief is not something that you feel. Yeah. Grief is a place.
Yeah.
And that's where, once you deal with it, once you approach that and deal with it, they often will say you can move on. And that's moving on from that place of grief.
That's really the motivation for you to write.
It was what inspired
your
me.
Book, Justifying the Means.
Yeah, Brian's story.
Brian's story, written by Bruce McLeod, your pen name.
Correct.
It's available
on Amazon. I am working with a company in Melbourne called Melbourne Audiobook Productions in trying to do the audiobook. The whole process of doing this was simply getting Brian's story out there. And I think we spoke earlier in regards to the fact that we all have stories. Yeah. We all experience life, and for some of us we do experience crime. And I think it's important that it was, for me, telling the story, because to me, Brian mattered. This episode of Life and Crimes is dedicated to the memory of your friend, Brian. Just Brian? Yeah. Just no Brian, no surname? No, just Brian. Just Brian. He was my mate, and I just, talking about him is a way of honouring him, is a way of honouring his memory and who he was. That was the first thing that he would basically say to people, just call me Brian. Just call me Brian. Yeah. But don't call me a screw maggot dog. No, don't call me that. Thank you. Bruce McLeod, real name something else. Your book, Justifying the Means, is out there in the world. Thanks for coming to talk to us at Life and Crimes. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Life and Crimes is a Sunday Herald Sun production for True Crime Australia. Our producer is Jonty Burton. For my columns, features and more, go to heraldsun.com.au/Andrew Rule, one word. For advertising inquiries, go to newspodcasts sold@news.com.au. That is all one word, newspodcasts sold. And if you want further information about this episode, links are in the description.